Hi there, my name is Terry Singh. I have Andrew Barnes here. He is Senior Vice President of Corporate Development at Neverfail, the Neverfail Group, that's how it's called. Hi Andrew, how are you doing? Welcome to VMWorld Camp.
Hi Terry, I'm very good, thank you.
So how are you? How have you been experiencing VMworld? Have you been downstairs in the Solutions Exchange, or you got some opportunity to see some sessions?
Both really. Yeah, we use this as a learning exercise for what's going on, but also, you know, as a VMware partner and a vendor, we use this as an awareness and a lead generation opportunity as well.
Absolutely. So do you have any demos down there which you might want?
Yeah, and what we've been doing is demoing a lot of our new product, which is Neverfail for VMware Virtual Center.
Very interesting.
And as you know, Virtual Center is becoming more and more important. It's, you know, the single point of control for vMotion, for DRS, but also now for SRM and all of the VDI stuff as well. So they all rely upon availability of Virtual Center to be able to operate.
A little bit about Neverfail Group. I'm sure it's a big company. I mean, I speak to a lot of companies, and they have like 15, 20 years history. And this, the rebirth, or that, you know, that little rebirth within their own company of the virtualization awareness kind of thing, may have that Neverfail Group's additional module in Virtual Center. But just very briefly about what you are, how quick.
Sure. We went through our own rebirth probably 4 or 5 years ago. We started life as a consultancy company selling disaster recovery consultancy and strategy. And we looked at what people were doing, and we looked at the issues and challenges with just straight backup solutions. And we built a product. And that product does replication of data, and it does monitoring of applications. So it joins applications and data together to make sure that if there is downtime for an IT resource, it's not downtime for business.
No. Okay.
So we built a product, and over the last 4 or 5 years we've been selling it, and we've got something like 1,500 to 2,000 customers now.
That's healthy.
Yeah, very healthy.
And
a lot of those are in the virtualization space today. You know, a lot of them are using Neverfail to provide a continuous availability, as we call it, for mission critical applications like Exchange. They haven't yet maybe virtualized Exchange, they're worried about it, but they want to use the virtual infrastructure to protect it, and they're using us in a kind of hybrid mode, you know, blending physical and virtual deployment to give really what the business needs, which is availability.
Excellent. So what is your differentiated technology, or your, you know, what differentiates you from the traditional monolithic? You know, for example, I just, you know, take a simple example of SANs. People say, well, go buy a SAN and do whatever you want to do. Expensive solution, you know, so you sync SANs and you do all kinds of complex operations, costs you tons and tons of money.
Yeah. So maybe the best thing is to talk about a customer. You know, what one of the big differentiators is for a recent customer called Nathaniel Litchfield and Partners. They're a planning consultancy house, about 200 people, so not big. They looked for 24-hour availability, 24/7 availability of Exchange. They looked at the various options, and a lot of them required to put in place a SAN infrastructure, and it was way out of their budget. So what they decided to do, they wanted protection of Exchange and SQL Server and a document management system. They put VMware in as a secondary server, and they replicate using our technology. So they've got a complete copy of Exchange, for example, sitting not just on their physical server, but also on a virtual server.
So they're kind of, you know, they're creating a kind of a staging environment for someday whenever they're ready to take VMware into production, then they have a full the whole backup solution.
Yeah, so what they're getting today for a very reasonable cost and maybe 2 days of implementation is today they've got 24/7 availability of Exchange. But what they've also got, that 24/7 doesn't just mean unexpected downtime. It also means planned downtime. You know, they have to upgrade maybe a hardware patch. They have to upgrade a firmware patch. They maybe have to change some bits of the hardware on the physical machine. Then they can take that down and switch the Exchange service onto the virtual machine. So the virtual machine is giving them continuous availability.
Continuous availability, but that is not high availability, right? Because high availability involves clustering and all that.
Well, high availability doesn't have to involve clustering. You know, we see continuous availability as going beyond high availability. Think about if you use Microsoft clustering, for example, with Exchange, but you have to take down maybe the server room because you've had a power supply upgrade needed to the server room. that high availability means nothing because you have to take the cluster down.
Yeah, but I just mentioned, I mean, high availability in terms of like load balanced clustered machines where you have a set of like 20 application servers on the front end, 2 or 4, or even, I mean, Oracle RAC, Oracle database, they have 64 kind of app back end. One service goes down. But again, that's an expensive option, I know.
Yeah.
But that's the kind of high availability I meant. But definitely continuous availability is the trend where people are going to, where you say if your physical or production virtual environment is down, in a couple of minutes or seconds, depending on how quickly it fires up on the other side.
Exactly. Exactly. But it goes beyond that as well. A key part of what we do is we do application level monitoring. So if you look at how monitoring tools may look at to see whether an application is performing, they may just ping the hardware, or they may just see if the VM is running if you're looking at it through Virtual Center. So just because the VM is running doesn't mean that the application is performing.
Absolutely.
So we monitor the availability of the application. We look at SMTP queues, we look at Windows services, are they up and running? If they're not, we'll try and heal the situation by restarting them.
And all that in the service console.
Exactly. And if we can't do that, then we will fail over to a secondary server.
Okay. So do you have any competition? I was talking a couple of months back, in fact, to Marathon Technology. So I mentioned your name. So hey, are these guys your competitors? They said, no, not really. They are partly. So how do you look at Marathon? So Marathon are also into,
Sure. And if you look at someone like Marathon, I guess in some people's mind, they may be seen as competition, but in many ways they're complementary as well. Because what we're not trying to do is we're not trying to make hardware fault tolerant. We're not trying to make virtual machines fault tolerant. We expect there to be downtime in IT. So we put redundancy in place so that IT downtime in one place, you just pick up the service on another VM or on another physical server, and the application carries on running. So it's quite a different approach to Marathon.
Okay, so is Neverfail? What kind of a strategy do you have? Are you just local? Like you want to just stay in Europe, or
No. We're a UK company, so we develop actually out of Scotland and Romania. But a big part, probably the majority of our business, comes out of North America. So we have a US headquarters in Austin, in Texas, and we have close to 1,000 customers in North America.
North America. So the rest 500, they are in Europe?
They're mostly across Europe, but we have reseller and distribution networks in Asia, for example, and we've actually just opened an office in Australia. So the business is doing very well, so we're funding growth
absolutely.
outside of Europe as well. We also have an office in Dubai.
Okay.
So we're covering the Middle Eastern market.
Okay, that's excellent. So you have a virtual center, and the plugin. Is that a plugin? Would it come as a plugin at some point in time, or?
Okay. So virtual center, as we discussed, really important for moving forward, controlling VDI, vMotion, DRS, etc. So we've taken what we've learned about protecting mission critical applications. We've taken our technology and we've built a plugin to protect Virtual Center. So it's monitoring the Virtual Center application itself.
Okay.
It's monitoring the SQL Server database. If it's seeing issues, then it's providing a seamless failover. So even though you may suffer, many people deploy Virtual Center on a physical machine because they like to maintain it independently from the VR.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if you have issues with that virtual machine, you don't want that to stop your virtual infrastructure working. So people will put in place a secondary server that will monitor the primary server, and we just keep Virtual Center running.
Okay.
It doesn't have to be a physical machine. It can be two virtual machines.
It can be two virtual machines, but it can also be a physical machine that has a virtual machine kind of a backup.
Exactly. Exactly. And it's important to bear in mind that we're protecting the SQL Server database as well. So it is a complete solution.
Absolutely.
And today, and I think there's a session at VMworld tomorrow on how to use Microsoft Cluster Server to protect Virtual Center. And to be honest, that's a complete overkill. Implementing clusters, as you know, is...
I have had my own experience. I come from a database cluster work. I have been an Oracle database administrator for quite a while. And it's not easy.
Yeah, I go back to the days of digital and VMS and VAX clusters, and I used to implement them and tear my hair out. And today, implementing a Microsoft cluster is not necessarily straightforward. A much lower cost and a much more affordable solution, both in terms of skills and money, is to look at Neverfail for Virtual Center.
Absolutely. So you have a differentiated strategy, but the pricing, how does it work? Is it cheaper as well, or how does it work?
Yeah, because you can reuse existing hardware, because you're not having to use maybe enterprise licenses for your SQL Server, it works out much more cost effective. And it's, yeah, it really is aimed at enterprises, because it's the enterprises that are deploying VI and really getting the value from vMotion and DRS. And the pricing is kind of consistent with it being an enterprise class product.
What can we, as a last question, unless of course, Andrew, you have something else to add? Yeah.
Well, the other thing I think is just to re-emphasize, I talked about enterprise customers there, that smaller businesses and mid-market, they want to exploit the value of virtualization, but are perhaps put off by the cost of shared storage, enterprise class storage.
That's a huge investment. I mean, it keeps on growing.
So Neverfail, because it can use a single ESX server to protect and provide high availability for something like Exchange, then they can gradually work their way into the virtualization world and get immediate benefit at the same time as understanding the ins and outs of virtualization.
Absolutely. So about this, like I said, as a last question, thanks for the input. What are we expecting any innovation within the Neverfail Group? Because the storage technologies, for example, 3.5 has support for ADA, SATA, and what kind of innovation do we expect within your?
Well, some people see us as a storage company, and we're really not a storage company. We're a layer above that. So innovation will come from things like multi-tiered protection layers. Innovation will come by protecting new applications, further implementations that will integrate further with Virtual Center. One of the things we've recently announced is Neverfail version 5.3, which has eliminated scripting from our solution. Very often people looking at replication technologies will require writing lots of scripts to control replication. And I think SRM is a script-based workflow solution.
I guess so, yeah.
Whereas we've taken an embedded knowledge of how to manage those applications into our product as effectively compiled parts of our product, which you can compile in plugins. And that's really where our innovation is going to the next level of protection.
Yes, the user experience and the administrator should spend less and less time working on the scripts, because if the service is down, you should be able to do some kind of
absolutely. And you mentioned the user. Yeah, our focus is on the user experience. We want the user to not know that there's been an IT issue. So an IT issue should not be a crisis for the user.
Yes.
And that's, I guess, the difference between high availability and continuous availability.
Absolutely.
The user is continuously able to access their applications.
Yeah, it's like you're on a web browser, you see the web browser not responding, it comes back online, so the user experience as a user, how they experience it is different than you totally don't get any information and you have spent half an hour or...
Exactly. And when you think about words like disaster recovery, it sounds very dramatic. And actually the thing that takes applications down is much more mundane. Perhaps an administrator unplugs the wrong cable, or perhaps there's a firmware patch to be made. We enable that continuous operations without disrupting the user, and without requiring the administrator to come in at 4 o'clock on a Sunday morning.
Yeah, because it is not a disaster.
It could be a disaster to the business, not having ability.
It is not a disastrous event, as in...
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's not necessarily a disaster event, but the implications of that for the business could be a disaster.
Exactly. So you build that layer of the software layer where you said the innovation, which is very correctly pointed, because people do look at storage groups and network groups and it says, you just offer appliances and it should work. But you got to get that software layer smarter and intelligent that can kind of monitor services on the application stack and the operating systems, whether virtual or not. And just make sure that they are kind of recovered.
Absolutely.
So I think that's very important.
Absolutely.
It was really great talking to you, Andrew.
And you too, Terry.
And I wish you a lot of luck. Yeah, nice meeting you as well.
Yeah.
And I hope you enjoy your stay at
well, we've enjoyed it so far, so I'm sure we will.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.